it does respond well. Again, it's awkward to play with one hand. And I can launch this weapon. But it's very responsive, actually. You'll have to take my word for it that this works well. But it does work. This game, of course, does not showcase all the buttons. I don't know if these buttons do anything in this game. Let's see. I don't know in Nintendo 64 games much. See, it does change the camera. This is changing some options on the screen, the C button. This C button seems to do nothing. This is changing the camera. That pauses the game. Start. Left I don't think does anything. Right, or R I should say, the right bumper makes the character jump. And the Z button here will, well, I think I wasted that item, but it launches the item. You probably saw me shoot a shell before, and that was actually due to my pressing the Z button, which you probably could not see in the video. But all the buttons do work. I've played this game Mario Kart, beaten levels with it, and I believe that everything works, although I'm not that familiar with the original game to know completely certain. You can see I actually used that with the Z button, activated that star. But this works really well. Now, I'll go back to this device. I'm going to shut this emulator off. And I'm going to try testing that PlayStation aspect to it, which I don't think I've ever even tested before, but this will be the first time. So we'll take a standard, original, non-dual shock PlayStation 1 controller as our first device to test. So I just unraveled it, and let me retrieve the plug. Here's the plug. I'm going to plug it into the PlayStation port. Again, just to reiterate, I'm not sure if this device, or the other PlayStation device for that matter, works with PlayStation 2 controllers. I think that even if they do work, I'm not sure if their advanced functionality works. I'm not even sure what their full advanced functionality is. I don't really know that much about the differences between the PlayStation 1 and 2 controller. I know that the directional pad apparently is a little more sensitive, like there's a slight down and a full down, but a slight left and a full left. I'm not completely certain about the differences again between the PlayStation 1 and 2 controllers. And if it does work, if the PlayStation 2 controller does work on these adapters, I don't know if that advanced or special functionality, that different functionality, works with these adapters. In other words, if these adapters are sensitive to that. I don't know if they distinguish that. It's a question I have. If anybody knows, please leave a comment, because I don't know. So now I'm going to switch it without turning this off, I should say not turning it off, without unplugging it. I'm just going to flip the switch and see what happens. Again, I've never actually tested this before, but let's see. So you see here in my control panel, game controllers window, I still have the 4-axis 16-button controller showing up. And let me put this controller on the screen at the same time. Up, you'll see up is actually now moving around in the axes menu. Up, down, left, right. You see these buttons, and these buttons are actually reading as part of the axis buttons, interestingly. But they're reading as buttons as well. You see the L and R bumpers, the 2 R bumpers, the 2 L bumpers. All are lighting up. At least I think this is lighting up. I don't know if R1 is working. R1 does not seem to be working. Could be a problem with this controller, I don't know. Thought I tested it in my last video though. Not sure. The R1 does not seem to be working. Start and select work. And these buttons work as well. These buttons are raising the Z-axis, that axis, those axis bars. I'm not sure why, but they are reading as buttons down below. So I don't think there'll be a problem with that. So now, let me try using the Nintendo 64 controller. You'll see I'm moving it around now. While this is switched, the switch on this, the left light is on, meaning the PlayStation controller is working. So the N64 controller is not working. Now let me flip the switch, make the light to the right side, which indicates that the Nintendo 64 controller is selected. And let's see if it changed just based on that. Yes, you can see it changes instantaneously right here. Just by flipping this one switch, I can change toggle between the PlayStation 1 and the N64 controller. That's very nice. Now let's see if this DualShock controller works with this device. So I'm going to unplug the standard non-DualShock, or original I should say, non-DualShock controller for the PS1. I'll unravel the cord here. Just give me a moment. And I will plug it in to the USB adapter. And there it is. Let me switch it to the left light. So the PlayStation controller is selected. I didn't plug it in all the way. Now it is. So, again, let's go on the screen here to test our controller. Test this controller. Up, down, left, right. See the buttons read. Now the real test here though is the analog. So let me turn the analog on. See, it's powered on. The light is on. And look, it is reading. And up, down, left, right have become digital buttons mapped digitally instead of mapped to the axis box. When I shut analog off, the up, down, left, right, the digital directional pad is mapped to the axis box. Axis box, when I turn it on, the D-pad is mapped to buttons. The axis box indicates the left, or is mapped to the, or I should say the left analog button is mapped to the axis box, and the right analog button is mapped to this Z-axis Z-rotational bars. So this does work, I think, with this emulator. Actually, I'm not sure, but this looks the same exact way that the other PlayStation adapter, USB adapter that I have. This is for PlayStation only. This reads the DualShock controller the same way, and as I mentioned in that video, with this device I was able to beat successfully, play through the whole game of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for the PC version. I mapped the buttons just like on the PlayStation 2, and I played through that entire game, and it was great fun, and I had no problem using this controller throughout the duration of the game. I beat it. I got I got a lot of the bonuses and such, and it worked great. So this device worked great. I don't have a PlayStation emulator set up at the moment, so I'm not going to demonstrate to you the analogs, but I will show you something interesting. I'm going to go to the Nintendo 64 emulator, and I'm going to show you that you can use a PlayStation 1 DualShock controller as a substitute for the Nintendo 64 controller. You do not need to use a Nintendo 64 controller to play Nintendo 64 games well. You're gonna have to do different mapping, and again, having a picture of a Nintendo 64 controller at hand, or having a real Nintendo 64 controller at hand while doing it will help. So again, we're gonna have to make some choices here. We'll map the up, down, left, right of the D-pad to the D-pad here. That's an easy one. So let me go to the D-pad. You'll see here digital. That's when I see D-pad here, I meant the digital D-pad, not the analog one. So up, we'll map here. And actually, you're not going to be able to see all those changes because I already have a control select. Let me do this default. You'll see now it's set these all to keyboard buttons on the keyboard of the computer. So I'm going to start mapping